Okay, let's just jump right in. Because, honestly, this first finding, it's not just a shift. It feels more like a geopolitical earthquake. Russian military doctrine, we're talking decades of hard-won combat experience. From Chechnya, Syria, right up to Ukraine apparently sold, lock, stock, and barrel to China.
For a reported $210 million.
Exactly. And this isn't just like selling spare parts.
Yeah.
It involves setting up and training an entire airborne battalion. It fundamentally changes the whole strategic picture around Taiwan.
Yeah. The intelligence suggests this could slash the PLA's invasion readiness timeline. I mean, not by months, but potentially by 10, maybe even 15 years.
It's huge. Welcome to NationScope Podcast. Join us as we dive into the latest headlines, breaking stories, and critical events shaping America and the world, from geopolitics and security to technology and the economy. And this is a really critical deep dive today.
Absolutely. Today, we're digging into these leaked intelligence documents, and they seem to provide pretty compelling proof that the Sino-Russian partnership, it's moved way beyond just, symbolic exercises or political alignment.
So what are we looking at now?
We're looking at direct, functional, operational integration. The sources we have reveal a pretty clear division of labor, actually. Russia, under severe economic pressure, seems to be directly boosting China's capacity for high-impact airborne assault. And that's a capability Beijing, frankly, really needs.
Okay, so over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack exactly what was in this deal, the specific weapons, including, get this, tank-level firepower that can be dropped from the sky. And we'll discuss the massive geopolitical shockwaves. The core thing to understand here, and we'll keep coming back to it, is why security in Kiev and security in Taipei are now, seemingly by Moscow's deliberate choice, completely intertwined.
And what's really interesting is where this information comes from. The basis for all this analysis is a pretty large cache of documents. We're talking nearly 800 pages, contracts, high-level emails, that sort of thing.
Okay.
These were apparently obtained first by a hacktivist group. They call themselves Black Moon.
Black Moon. Okay, that sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? Like someone out of a spy movie. Why should we put so much weight on documents leaked by hackers?
That's always the crucial question, isn't it? And the answer really is the verification. The main analysis, the really rigorous checking, was done by the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI. They're a very well-respected defense and security think tank based in London.
Okay, RUSI. I know them.
Right. And they maintain the documents look genuine, the level of detail, the granular data. It apparently lines up really well with things we've observed, troop movements, broader trends.
And there's more, right? Moscow's reaction.
Exactly. Moscow recently designated RUSI as an undesirable organization, which, to many analysts, that's not exactly a denial. It's seen as sort of an indirect confirmation that the report really hit a nerve.
Okay, so let's talk about the money. Over $210 million. If we break down that bill, what exactly did China get for its money? Because, like you said, this sounds like more than just buying equipment. It's like a whole assault capability in a box.
It really is. It's practically the blueprint for a force that's ready to go. The agreement looks like it was finalized in 2023, provides a complete combined arms package for one PLA airborne battalion.
And combined arms means?
It means not just paratroopers with rifles. It means they jump with heavy equipment, vehicles, support weapons, the whole 9 yards.
And this is where the hardware specifics get really interesting, because they seem very tailored. They're getting things like the BMD-4M light amphibious assault vehicle for mobile fire support.
Yeah.
But the real eye-opener, the thing people are pointing to, is the Scroot SDM-1.
Yes, the Sprut. It's an amphibious anti-tank self-propelled gun. Now, why that matters is, well, it has a massive 125-millimeter smoothbore gun.
125 millimeter, that's main battle tank caliber, isn't it?
That is actual tank-level firepower, and the key thing, it can be airdropped right onto a potentially contested battlefield.
Wait, hang on. So they are literally dropping the equivalent of, maybe not a heavy tank, but a serious tank killer to support paratroopers who are usually, lightly armed infantry.
Precisely, and that capability is absolutely vital if you expect to run into the defenders' tanks or armored vehicles once you land, which in Taiwan you certainly would. Right. It means these airborne troops aren't just a raiding force. They can potentially seize ground and, maybe more importantly, hold it against a proper counterattack. They also got the BTR-MDM armored personnel carriers, the Rakushka, and this is also critical, Orlan-10 drones.
For recon.
Exactly. Organic ISR intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance gives the battalion its own eyes in the sky right there with them.
But the hardware, I mean, an airdroppable tank gun is impressive, no doubt.
Yeah.
But you suggested earlier, that's not even the main prize here. The real value for China is the doctrine.
Absolutely. Look, China's very good at reverse engineering hardware. They can figure out how to build a cannon. What they can't easily replicate is decades of actual, messy, real-world combat experience.
The lessons learned the hard way.
Right. The deal includes what they call a full cycle of support. Russia has apparently committed to training an entire PLA airborne battalion. Starts with technical training, probably in Russia, then moves to collective combat training back in China. But crucially, under Russian instructors who've actually been there, done that.
So Russia is basically exporting its entire airborne assault playbook, all the successes, but also all the failures learned in places like Chechnya, Syria, and critically, Ukraine.
It appears so.
Yeah.
And this brings us to what seems like a huge strategic concession from Russia. They've historically been really paranoid about China copying their best military tech. Remember the J-11 fighter incident?
Oh, yeah. Very messy.
Yet here, the documents say they committed to transferring technologies that let China scale up the production of similar weapons through localization and modernization. That's basically giving them the keys to the factory long term. Why do that?
It screams desperation, doesn't it? Or at least a major shift in priorities.
It's likely both. It's the clear sign yet of how badly Russia needs the money, the economic lifeline, but it also shows their strategic thinking now. They seem willing to accept the long-term risk of being technologically leapfrogged by China in exchange for immediate cash and, perhaps more importantly, immediate strategic leverage against the U.S.
But China wasn't just a passive buyer here, right? There was a key demand from their side.
A very revealing one. The PLA insisted that all these Russian vehicles had to integrate Chinese communication and command and control systems, C2 systems.
Why is that specific requirement so important? Why not just use the Russian systems they came with?
Because that would create an operational island. That new battalion with its Russian gear wouldn't be able to easily talk to or coordinate with the rest of the PLA, the Navy, the Air Force, other ground units.
Ah, got it. Interoperability.
Exactly. By forcing the integration of their own C2 suites, the PLA ensures this new, highly capable battalion isn't isolated. It plugs seamlessly into their existing network-centric warfare structure. It shows really meticulous planning, thinking about the whole system, not just the individual pieces.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the timing, the strategic why now. Why this deep operational integration at this moment? Starting with Beijing, why pay top dollar for this capability when the PLA is already, a massive military power?
It really boils down to two things they can't easily build themselves: time and battle-tested experience. While the PLA is way ahead of Russia in many areas, naval power, rocketry, cyberweaponry, their airborne forces are seen as relatively young. They lack that hard-won doctrine for complex, high-risk operations like, say, an island assault.
So this purchase is essentially a shortcut.
A massive shortcut. Military analysts estimate this could genuinely shave 10 to 15 years off the time it would take them to develop this kind of sophisticated airborne capability organically through trial and error.
In that time frame, 10 to 15 years. That puts us squarely in the red.
It aligns disturbingly well with those U.S. intelligence assessments we mentioned earlier that Xi Jinping has apparently ordered the PLA to be ready for a potential Taiwan contingency as early as 2027.
Right.
So this new airborne capability isn't just theoretical. It is asymmetric, driven by necessity. First, there's the obvious practical driver: money. $210 million is a significant injection of cash for Russia's defense industry, which is under immense strain from sanctions and, frankly, the huge losses in Ukraine. China is their indispensable economic partner right now.
But it's got to be more than just cash flow, right? There's a bigger strategic play here against the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. That's arguably the primary motive. Russia wants to make the U.S. security headache much, much worse. By boosting China's ability to credibly threaten Taiwan, Moscow aims to bog the United States down in a potential two-front crisis.
Distract and divide.
Precisely. Distract U.S. attention, force Washington to split resources, pull valuable assets like carrier strike groups, intelligence platforms, funding away from Europe and the Ukraine war effort. Every high-end missile or surveillance drone earmarked for the Pacific potentially means one less for Kyiv. It's a calculated move to relieve pressure on themselves.
And this whole transaction, it really cements a shift in the Russia-China relationship, doesn't it? The dynamic seems different now.
It confirms, quite starkly, Russia's new position as the definitive junior partner in that relationship. They're selling their legacy knowledge, their combat experience, the software, if you will, because their hardware, while still potent in some areas, isn't uniquely cutting edge anymore in the way it once was. They're trading future technological parity for immediate cash and strategic disruption against a common adversary.
Okay, let's pivot to the impact, the geopolitical shockwaves. Specifically for Taiwan, what new, frankly terrifying scenarios does this capability enable?
Well, it's tailor-made for an island seizure scenario. It moves the threat beyond just a predictable D-Day style beach landing, which Taiwan has spent decades preparing for.
How so?
Now you have the potential for significant forces with serious firepower being dropped behind the coastal defenses. Think unconventional landing zones, maybe large open areas like golf courses, industrial parks, even just firm, flat farmland inland. They could seize key facilities from the rear, disrupt command and control, sow chaos. It forces Taiwan to defend potentially everywhere simultaneously.
And the sources mentioned something specific, particular piece of gear, the Dulnolia parachute system. Sounds exotic.
It's high altitude, high opening, or HAHO. And yes, it adds a whole new layer of threat, almost a hybrid warfare dimension. This system lets special forces jump from very high altitudes, maybe 8,000 meters or so.
Way up there.
And then glide, essentially fly under canopy, for potentially up to 80 kilometers.
80 kilometers, that's a huge range.
It's enormous. It allows for what you might call stage zero infiltration. The transport aircraft carrying these troops could launch them from well outside the range of Taiwan's air defenses.
Undetected insertion.
Pretty much. These teams could then glide in silently, maybe under the cover of darkness, for pre-invasion missions, sabotage critical infrastructure, maybe take out key leaders, set up landing beacons for follow-on forces. It's a capability designed for preemptive strikes before the main fight even starts.
And it seems pretty clear China isn't just buying gear. They're studying recent conflicts very closely, learning from mistakes, including Russia's own.
Very much so. Analysts see clear evidence. They've studied the frankly disastrous initial Russian attempt to seize Hostomel airfield near Kyiv back in early 2022.
Right, the helicopter assault that almost worked but then didn't.
Exactly. It failed largely because the initial Russian airborne force, though achieving surprise, lacked the heavy firepower and logistical support to hold the airfield once the Ukrainians counterattacked decisively. The PLA seems determined not to repeat that mistake. This purchase is about creating a combined arms airborne force that can not only seize critical ground, but also hold it.
So for policymakers in Washington, in Tokyo, in Canberra, what's the big strategic takeaway from this deepening cooperation?
The unavoidable conclusion is that the security challenges in Europe and the Indo-Pacific are now more than ever strategically linked. They're not separate problems anymore.
How so? What's the linkage?
This deal creates a kind of strategic pincer for the U.S. and its allies. Any major effort or resource allocation towards shoring up defenses in Europe, supporting Ukraine, might be perceived by Beijing as creating an opportunity, a window of distraction in the Pacific.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. A very strong U.S. focus on deterring conflict over Taiwan could, in turn, embolden Moscow to take more risks in Europe, thinking U.S. attention is elsewhere.
So the message for you, listening to this, is really quite stark. The security of Taipei and the security of Kyiv. They are now, by deliberate strategic design, linked at the hip.
That's the new reality. It forces a shift away from purely regional defense planning towards a much more globally integrated strategy for the U.S. and its allies. You can't just focus on one theater anymore.
Now, after this RUSI report came out, detailing all this, there's a notable reaction, or rather lack of reaction, from the main players.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that silence. What did Moscow and Beijing officially say?
Basically nothing. A very disciplined, calculated silence. Multiple major international news outlets reached out to the Kremlin, to China's Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
And gut.
Crickets. No comment. Stonewalled.
That silence itself is a message, though, isn't it? It's not just that they didn't have a statement ready.
Oh, absolutely. It's a well-understood tactic in the gray zone, sometimes called strategic indifference. Denying it forcefully would just draw more attention to the report and, frankly, be hard to sustain given the likely evidence. So, by saying nothing, they maintain a thin layer of deniability, let the news cycle move on, while the actual military cooperation continues undisturbed behind the scenes.
The subtext being?
The unspoken message is pretty blunt. We know that you know what we're doing, and we don't particularly care what you think about it. It's actually a projection of confidence in a way.
But the silence wasn't total. It was sort of indirectly broken, wasn't it, by the party most directly threatened?
Correct. The most significant public reaction actually came, perhaps predictably, from Taiwan. An anonymous Taiwanese security official spoke to the press, strategically validating the core findings.
What do they say?
The official stated quite clearly that military cooperation between China and Russia goes far beyond what has been publicly acknowledged.
Which basically confirms the RUSI report's thrust, right? And serves as a signal.
Exactly. It lent official state-level weight to the intelligence leak, even from an anonymous source. And it served as a very clear alarm bell, primarily aimed at Washington, saying, look, we see this happening, this threat is real and accelerating, and we need continued, perhaps even enhanced security assistance to maintain deterrence.
So looking ahead then, if this $210 million deal, this transfer of doctrine and capability, is the new baseline, as you put it, what comes next? What does the next phase of Sino-Russian military cooperation look like?
Well, if Russia's willing to sell this level of expertise now, the trajectory seems pretty clear. Sources and analysts suggest future integration could go much deeper. We might see things like joint planning cells actually working together on operational contingencies, shared training exercises, maybe not just for airborne, but for other critical forces, naval infantry, special operations forces, and potentially joint research and development on next-generation systems. Think hypersonic weapons, maybe AI applications in warfare.
So the goal isn't just cooperation, it's moving towards interoperability, the de facto alliance.
That appears to be the endgame, a highly interoperable, coordinated military relationship that acts, for all practical purposes, like an alliance, even if it's not formally declared as one. And the strategic purpose is clear: to compel the United States to spread its resources thin, to abandon purely regional strategies, and adopt a much more demanding, globally integrated defense posture. It's a long game.
A sobering thought to end on. You've been listening to Nation Scope Podcast, where Jordan and Jamie analyze the stories shaping America and the world. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.